Actually, for a guy, for me, I can't give birth because I ain't the right gender for that. But the next closest thing to giving birth is writing a book and getting it published.
Yep. There you go. Let's dive into that. What it's your novel is it's your new novel is deeply spiritual. So what was happening in your life that pushed you to write a journey to a journey to spirit? What pushed you to
There,
do that?
there are elements, there are things that happen that you don't put in the right perspective. In 1974, I'd gotten divorced from my first wife, and I was angry with the world, and I was a pharmacist, and I was drag racing. I had a Volkswagen. I was drag racing some guy, and he hit me, and my car rolled over 5 times, and it was crushed, and I thought I was gonna die. I should have died, and yet there wasn't a scratch on me. I had some help from up there, and that was the first little piece. So, so my life kept unfurling. In modern day, there were things there were spiritual things that were happening that were extraordinary. I call it as I see it, and when you get to be a certain age, then it's almost like when you reach a certain age, and I am an octogenarian, which means I'll never see 79 again. If you flip that calendar and you hit that octogenarian thing, you start. It's a whole new look and a whole new view of life. You like sitting on a mountain looking down on things, and you're not afraid to say. If you were ever afraid before, you're certainly not afraid now, because what the hell?
Right.
We have, I think, a collective responsibility to bring people in, to kind of guide and lead people along.
Hello and welcome to Passion from Pain, the show where we strip life down to its bones, talk about the chapters most people skip over, and honor the kind of reinvention that doesn't come easy or clean. Today's guest is a man who's lived enough lives for three people and somehow managed to stay curious, awake, and radically human through every damn one of them. Calvin Schwartz is not just a journalist, he's not just a novelist, he's not just a broadcaster, he's a collector of stories, a translator of human experience, and a man who's spent years shining light on the overlooked corners of our world, from health to climate to culture to the spirit inside each of us that refuses to die. He's the voice behind Conversations with Calvin, We the Species, the global YouTube series that pulls people in from every walk of life: scientists, innovators, creators, thinkers, healers, anyone with a story that can wake us up. He taught at Rutgers, helped launch climate initiatives, sits on advisory boards, writes novels that peel into the human psyche, and still finds ways to ask questions most people are too distracted or too scared to ask. And here's what makes him fit this show so perfectly. Calvin understands evolution, the messy, spiritual, painful, beautiful kind that forces you to confront who you were, who you are, and who you are becoming. He knows what it means to shed identities, step into new roles, challenge systems, and stay connected to purpose, even when the world feels like it's cracking apart. His latest novel, There's a Tortoise in My Hair, A Journey to Spirit, digs right into that essence, slowing down, waking up, listening, becoming, not in a fluffy self help way, but in a way that someone speaks when they've lived, watched, questioned, and paid attention. So today, we're talking reinvention, aging with intention, spirituality, storytelling, human connection, and the fire that keeps a person exploring long after others settle. Calvin, you are a rare one, and it's an honor to have you here. Welcome to Passion from Pain. I'm so excited to have you on here because I loved our pre interview, and the stories that you have to tell and the message that you have is just fantastic. And so, thank you so much for coming on today, Calvin.
Thank you, Amy. I'm sitting here listening to you, and I feel I've aged 5 years. Uh,
You didn't drive you.
Well, I've aged 5 years because it makes me feel older. That you talking about me? It's like that. It's like that scene from Taxi Driver, with Robert De Niro. He's looking in the mirror. He's got guns. You talking to me?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at you, and I'm saying, you talking about me? Or it's you listen to those things, and it's kind of, I swear, it's like an out of body experience. She's talking about
Right.
me. Did I do that stuff? I guess I did. I guess I did, without a roadmap. Stuff
Yes.
just happens. And it happens because we all have that thing within us. I call it an antenna. And most 99.9% of us keep that antenna, inside. But every once in a while, if that antenna just like creeps up an inch or two up there, all of a sudden you start receiving. And the more you receive, the higher the antenna goes, and the more you get.
Yep.
So I marvel listening to you. And, I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. I truly, and I've been down the road. I've been there. I've done it, and I truly marveled listening to you. And I marveled when we were together a couple of weeks ago, just doing a prelim. You are a refreshing spirit.
Well,
Uh,
thank
yeah.
thank you. That's what I try to bring to the show and and to everybody. Through my lived experiences for sure. I love it. I love it. And I appreciate that.
Truly, I call it as I see it. And when you get to be a certain age,
Uh,
then it's almost like when you reach a certain age. And I am an octogenarian, which means I'll never see 79 again. That's what that means. And so when you flip that calendar and you hit that octogenarian thing, you start. It's a whole new look and a whole new view of life. You're like sitting on a mountain looking down on things, and you're not afraid to say. If you were ever afraid before, you're certainly not afraid now, because what the hell?
right.
Maybe. So what I'm saying is, I call it as I see it, Amy. And the things I said about you are true, and it comes from the heart. And I do marvel at you.
I love it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on because you call it like you see it. And it's one of the things I pulled from our conversation where you're not afraid to throw it out there. And so it's refreshing because a lot of people are so reserved and they pull back and the world needs a little bit more of um, putting it out there.
Correct. Correct. And it's funny, you're turning 80. Turning
Yes.
80, and for folks who don't know me, I've been practicing longevity techniques since 1969. So what I'm doing now and how this thing works, it's by as best I can manage by design.
Yeah.
It's all been by design. Or in 1969, as I was confronting a war in Southeast Asia and stuff, and I was confronting civil rights and women's liberation and all these things going on in the 60s. I also had time to think that I said to myself, Calvin, sometimes I talk to myself in private. I
Mhm.
said, Calvin, I don't think I really want to age traditionally. I
Yeah.
don't want it. I've been living a life and doing stuff for a lot of years to allow this thing up here to really function quite well,
Yeah.
and it does.
Yeah. I love it. And what have you done to for the longevity living?
Sure. Well, I did study pharmacy at Rutgers University. So I studied pharmacology, and I remember one day we were studying vitamins and supplements, and I said, gee, I got to do this stuff because, as perfect as the human body is, there's a couple of little gaps, and, we do need some help. So I then began my own little cocktail back in 1969 of 60 supplements a day.
Wow.
And I've been tweaking that, and I've been kind of working around that, and since 1969, I have been taking basically 60 things a day. And as my mother-in-law once said to me, she was a great lady and a tough lady. She said, Calvin, with all this stuff, the 60 things you take a day, you have the most expensive urine in the dirty.
Yeah. I imagine. I imagine.
So, I did the supplements, and in 19 and this I think is one of the biggest things I ever did. In 1975, I'm a bit of a humanitarian, and I love animals, and I care about our environment, as you said, and I know that cows eat a lot of grass, and we have to water that grass with tons of water, so that when the cows get fat, McDonald's makes that into a hamburger, and along the way, the cows give off methane that rises up, and it helps to heat the earth up. So, in 1975, in a commitment to those things, the climate and animals and my own health, and I loved hot dogs, and I loved corned beef and cabbage, and I loved a good steak, and I loved all that stuff. And I said, I have to deny. So I stopped eating anything with four legs in 1975, and I became a flexitarian. Some people say, "Oh, you're Presbyterian." I said, "No. Flexitarian means I'm not a vegetarian, but I just don't eat anything with four legs." And has it helped me? Yeah. Well, I haven't eaten meat, and I haven't eaten meat in 50 years. And I do know I had a test done. I'm very health conscious, and they did my uh, coronary arteries. They measured calcium and my how much cholesterol and built up stuff. I have zero coronary artery plaque,
Wow.
which means that the blood flowing up here is unimpeded. So this thing can really work well. Some doctors will say, not eating meat doesn't do it. And I said, well, it did for me.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing because there's this huge movement right now to do this carnivore diet and eat nothing but meat. And, I just gotta think, man, God, that's gotta be clogging up their arteries terribly. Just eating
Well,
nothing.
yeah, it's interesting. Uh, if you look at me, I'm just using me as an example. 20% of me and what I am is genetic. The other 80% is lifestyle. The things
Okay.
that I've done. So all I can say is, well, I did this, and look at this thing. This thing works so well for an 80-year-old. I interview people. I just finished my third book. I want to do 5 more books this year because this thing just keeps working full time. So what do we attribute it to? It's lifestyle, exercise, tons of exercise. Our exercise is wonderful. So these are the longevity things, I mean, the diet, the nutrition, the supplements, and I don't go wild. I just take a wide variety of things. And does it work? Well, something's working.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say it works, but something is, because I'm functioning at a high level. Uh,
Love it.
uh, and I'm really proud of this. You mentioned this book before. This is published 2 years ago. It got like major awards.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you kidding me? It got the Kirkus Star. It was runner up in the New York Book Festival. It was honorable mention in the Hollywood Book Festival. And I laugh. I'm an old guy.
But
And it's the longevity. Listen, 6 years ago, Rutgers University, a major university in the Big Ten, at 74, asked me to start teaching. So when most people are retiring,
yep.
most people, 74 are retired. They're sitting on the front porch, in a rocking chair, drinking food juice on the rocks. And I'm first starting to teach. Again, it's a byproduct of lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Are you ever gonna put out a book on lifestyle?
Yes.
Should.
Funny you said that.
Yeah.
So we didn't rehearse this. It's so
No.
funny you said that. the next book I want to write is I want to write 10 things. Well, I might as well say this is coming out. It's a little 10 things I learned from the billionaire. That is actually in pre-order. I'll send you the stuff. It's in pre-order on Amazon, and I collaborate with Kay Wagner, a best-selling author, and it's because I worked for the richest Italian in the world for 25 years and I learned a lot of stuff. It's all stuck up here. All that stuff I learned. It's the same billionaire that Mark Zuckerberg 5 years ago, the guy from Facebook, flew to meet with in Italy to talk about a project. It's the same billionaire. So anyway, this is done, and the next thing I want to write is my journey to becoming a father. 10 things I learned about adoption, because it's a very moving, emotional thing. And the next book after that is 10 things I learned about longevity.
I love it.
Calvin stuff, none of this clinical BS stuff. This is just simple, basic, everyday life things.
People are craving more of that. They're craving more authenticity, more just regular people stories, and experiences. That's what I'm finding.
Well, you're right. They're craving that. You get all these plastic things all over the internet and all over social media and all people dancing and all kinds of crazy stuff. But there's certain real journeys and real things
Yeah.
happening, and there's certain realities, just like you said. So yeah, that's what I do. I just like to tell real stories. They're Calvin stories. I have my own kind of unique way of writing. Uh, um, and things I like to talk about and write about. Um, I was back. I didn't show you, but I was a bit of an artist back in 1970. I drew an interesting picture because I was worried about things in Southeast Asia and worried about civil rights and worried about a lot of stuff and women's lib and all this stuff. Part of the journey.
So who were you before journalism, before the novels, before advocacy, before the world kind of knew your work? I mean, where did you kind of just begin? And how did that journey bring you to where you are today?
That's a great question. So I was a pharmacist for 12 years because I had an overbearing mother who insisted I become a pharmacist. And back in those days, I was as quiet could be. I went through 4 years of high school, no dates, no dances, no parties, no nothing, no friends, because I'm tall. You can't tell, but I'm 6'5.5".
Oh my
And
goodness.
and I used to be able to dunk a basketball back in the days. So I was a quiet guy. From high school, I went to college. Still a quiet guy. Became a pharmacist. Did community pharmacy for 12 years. Quiet guy. And then my first introduction to spirituality.
Yeah.
There was something around me and in me, this spiritual component, and I was beginning to discover it. And it said for me one Sunday morning in 1981 to quit being a pharmacist and just not do it. And I just got married, and bought a house. We're newlyweds, and here I am quitting my profession. And again, I didn't know who I was. By the way, I had no. I knew there was something inside me in my belly. I just didn't know what it was. So it made me quit. I tried actually to get a part in a play here, a local play. I auditioned a play called Frankenstein, as a matter of fact. True. Yeah, I thought, I'd get the part because I'm 6'5" and I look like Boris Karloff and I could be a monster. So I actually auditioned for that. Again, not knowing, who I am. Why am I auditioning for a play? Uh, so anyway, I auditioned. I'm still waiting to hear. That was 1981. I guess I didn't get the part. Um,
No. Yeah, yeah.
Guess I didn't. So I sat home for 6 months, and then I had a relative said, "Calvin, your marriage is falling apart. You got to do something." So he got me a job, reluctantly selling eyeglasses, and I didn't know if I could get in front of people to sell them anything. I never did that before, but it was a matter of survival. I had to do something. So I took the job, and within a year, I like talking to people. I built New York. I didn't know that that was inside. It sort of kind of came out, and so I after a year I got a job with the biggest with it was growing, it was going to become the biggest eyewear company, a company called Exotica, and eventually they went on to buy LensCrafters and Pearl and Ray-Ban and sunglasses, everything in the eyeglass business. And I spent 25 wonderful, amazing, special years working for what would become the richest Italian in the world. And that's why I wrote this, because I learned so much from this billionaire. But again, to answer your question, I still didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I'm reaching for a prop. It wasn't until and what really like opened up my soul and try to tell me who I was. After my 25th year there, one day I watched this movie Casablanca,
Mhm.
which I love.
Yeah.
And with the end of the scene of Casablanca, at the end of the scene, Humphrey Bogart shoots the bad guy. It's 1942, and Bogart shoots the bad guy, and Claude Rains, a wonderful character actor, picks up a bottle of Vichy water that looks like this. It's 1942 in Casablanca, and anything in 1942 that had the word Vichy in it meant you were conspiring, with the Germans. It was a bad word. So he throws that bottle in the garbage. The second it hits the garbage, I grab my head, and my wife yelled, "Are you all right? What happened?" I said, "Yeah, there's a novel in my head." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "There's a novel in my head." So I came downstairs and I outlined this thing called Vichy water.
Very cool.
And that became my first novel, which I did nothing with. But you wake up one morning and say, "Hey, I wrote a novel.
Yep.
I can do anything." So I retired from Luxottica, 25 years, and I decided again, stuff inside. You just don't know. You go with what's inside your belly,
Yep.
and it said for me to become a journalist. And I knew nothing about journalism, so I started writing for a few Jersey Shore magazines. And then I got hooked up with this amazing man, Kurt Schumay, who owns NJ Discover, a production company. And before I know it, I'm a journalist there. And before I know it, I have a cable TV talk show here that I'm producing and co-hosting. At our peak, we brought in Gilbert Gottfried, one of the funny comedians.
Yeah.
Brought in Frankie Prevett, who won the Academy Award for Dirty Dancing music. And, I'm doing all these things. And then, I got involved with the Women's Health Institute at the medical school, Robert Wood Johnson Rutgers Medical School. And all of a sudden, I'm on the advisory committee of the Women's Health Institute. The point being, to answer a long-winded, who am I? I'm not sure, because all these things are so far removed from everything I was. But you just, in other words, you live life and you jump in to everything and you open your mind and your heart and your soul, and these things just come to you and you just keep going with the flow. And I just keep going, at the teaching gig, and now the writing gig, and of course I had to write that tortoise book, because the other side of me is a huge spiritual component that's off the charts.
Yeah. 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 Let's dive into that. What it's your novel is it's your new novel is deeply spiritual. So what was happening in your life that pushed you to write a journey to a journey to spirit? What pushed you to
There,
do that?
there are elements, there are things that happen that you don't put in the right perspective. In 1974, I'd gotten divorced from my first wife, and I was angry with the world, and I was a pharmacist, and I was drag racing. I had a Volkswagen. I was drag racing some guy, and he hit me, and my car rolled over 5 times, and it was crushed, and I thought I was going to die. I should have died, and yet there wasn't a scratch on me.
Wow.
And when the cops came to, find out what happened, and not a scratch on me, the car's crushed. And he said, your car went between the tree and a pole, and your car's wider than the distance. So we don't know how you got through there. So you must have had some help from up there, and that was the first little piece. So, so my life kept on unfurling in modern day. There were things there were spiritual things that were happening that were extraordinary. One morning, I was going to work. I was writing my first book, my second book, and I needed a character's name, and the name Louis Del Priore popped into my head one morning at 9 a.m. And this was the piece of energy that launched me into a whole spiritual acceptance, knowing there's something out there that's beyond. And I always tell everybody, I'm a regular guy. I wear a Rutgers hat,
Yeah.
and I go to Rutgers football games. I go to Rutgers basketball games. I eat tuna subs once a week. So I'm a regular guy, and there's nothing extraordinary about me. Ain't no different than anybody else. But so this name, Louis Del Priore, was a perfect name for a character that I was writing, and it came out of nowhere at 9 o'clock in the morning. One morning, it just all of a sudden, Louis Del Priore. And then later in the day, at 4:44 in the afternoon, I'm in an eye doctor's office because I sell eyeglasses. And while I'm waiting for the eye doctor to see me, at 4:44 in the afternoon, the patient comes in to pick up contact lenses. And who is it? Louis Del Priore,
Oh, wow.
the name that popped into my head 9 hours, earlier. And I asked him about his name, and of course he's Italian. He's from Brooklyn, and he said there's 2 million Italian. There's 2 million Italians in Brooklyn, and maybe one other family has that name. So I don't know how that got into my head, but I
Yeah.
don't know, because whatever spiritual. And listen, my the spirituality is so haunting. I mentioned to you before we went on air that I actually wrote Pope Leo a few months ago. I needed to share some of these spiritual bullet points with him because it means something. I just don't know what it means, but it's comforting. All these coincidences, are they coincidences? All these things. Another favorite story was we were in the Holy Land in 2016. I couldn't walk. I had a cane. I had been treated for all kinds of knee problems for years, for years. And I didn't want to ruin a trip for everybody. So, my wife's sister, we went to the Holy Land, and, I did my own thing for a couple of days. And one day I went to Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and I meditated at Christ's tomb, his casket, where he's buried and was resurrected from. Heavy stuff. And then the next to the last day, by myself, walking with a cane, in a lot of pain. I went to Joseph Church in Nazareth, and then Mary's Church, Church of the Annunciation. Did my own meditation to spirituality, and then I walk up the steps, and I felt some strange pain go up and down my knee, and I started to walk out. Took one step to walk out, and I grabbed my head and I yelled, "Oh my God!" Everybody came running. "Are you all right? What happened?" I said, "I just got healed."
Oh,
So I got healed in front of 4 women. No more cane, no more pain, no more new knee. Inexplicably, I got healed with witnesses, and nobody knows how and why. Certainly, it was a wondrous spirituality for a guy who goes to basketball games and football games. And that's part of my spirituality. It's great stuff. That's why I wrote this book,
yeah.
because I wanted to tell the story. The only message coming out of that book is for regular people to know there really is something beyond, this place that we live, with the oceans and the mountains and deserts and stuff. It's not the end of all.
Yeah.
There's things beyond our understanding and grasp, and it's nice. And we all have that. It's just that we're all kind of busy and we don't get a chance to throw that antenna up there.
Yeah. That's it. We get too busy. We get too bogged down. We get too involved in the stuff that's not important to really pay attention and see, but there is something bigger happening. Uh, I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of people are just unhappy. They don't take the time to notice things like that in life. I think it
Yeah. 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 It's kind of a line from. It's like a line from The Godfather. When Tom Hagen, Godfather One, comes out of age best, it's Christmas. He's shopping and he bumps into Virgil Salazzo. I'm an old movie guy, and Virgil Salazzo says to Tom Hagen, this, and he said, I don't have the time, and Virgil Salazzo says, make time.
Yeah.
Make the time. And to me that was such a powerful line, because we all should make the time.
Yeah.
To deal with these things.
Yeah. Absolutely. You you do have the time to do the things that you need to do for yourself, for your soul, for your healing. You do have the time. You just need to make it a priority, right? That's the problem is you're not making it a priority. You're prioritizing other people and other things, but you have the time. You just got to make it that priority for
Right.
sure. S-
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Make the time. Now I'm learning to make the time and the gifts, and keep, and it's an awareness. I'm possessed with this. It's a nice possession. To be aware of these things and to make the time for these things. And by the way, Thanksgiving's coming. We got to be grateful, and I'm certainly grateful that I threw that antenna up there, a long time ago, and it works. And then in my life, and doing the stuff I do now, and getting a chance to meet people like yourself, that enriches my own life, and it energizes me, and it's good for the soul to meet people like yourself. Uh, Good stuff.
It sure is. That's one of the things I love about doing this podcast. Like, I never set out to be a podcaster. And the funny thing is when I was a child, I was the shyest child ever. I mean, you couldn't even get me to say hello to you because I was so terrified I was going to say that wrong, right? So yeah, I wouldn't even speak, but here I am talking to complete strangers on the internet and posting it for complete strangers to watch on top of it. And so it's interesting how we evolve past our fears. But we do, we do. And you have a YouTube series and a podcast as well. You talk to people all over the world. What common thread do you see in I guess humanity right now with the people that you're talking to? What common thread are you finding with everybody?
Uh, Interesting. And by the way, there is a common. That's so astute of you to say that, because there is a common thread. When I created the name of this, it's called Conversation with Calvin, We the Species. Because a long, long time ago, growing up and being who I am and what I am, I realized we all, no matter what, we all are one species.
Yeah.
We're all, we're all one. We just don't take the time. We haven't figured it out that we are one, and we're human, so we do the human things. But when I came up with this podcast, it's Conversation with Calvin, We the Species. It's a little bit of a takeoff, on the Constitution, we the people. So I call this We the Species. And I wanted to impart my values that we are one species, and I wanted to focus on the people aspect. So from day one, no religion, no politics, because you can never win, and there's no winning, and it's pointless. We all have our own, spirits, our own religion. We're all under, and we under God, and it's written in the Constitution. But that's what I wanted to focus on. That we're one species, and we've got to solve problems together. And
Yeah.
one of these days we'll wake up. We got so and so I'm so prideful, because the people I've interviewed is about as diverse as you can find people. So I've interviewed in Nigeria, Lebanon, Egypt, Cameroon, India, Italy, Sweden, uh, uh, um, Borneo, Ecuador, Australia, Mexico. It's such a gratifying Czechoslovakia. I just did Prague, Poland, and everybody's unique and different.
Yeah.
We're all unique and different, but we don't talk about that stuff. We talk about the things that bond us,
Yeah.
just I just focus on positivity, and positive in their journeys and how I can help and spread the word. And it's a nice thing. I look, and it's the most gratifying thing to see such a diverse group of people focusing on positive elements of our species.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Who's the most fascinating guest that you've had on?
Um, Great question. There's been a couple. Early on, one of my early interviews was Donald James. He had just retired from being the number 2 man at NASA in education. And as he explained, he was one phone call away from the president. It was kind of haunting. I know this Sebastian Maniscalco is one of the funniest comedians in the country. I didn't interview him, but I interviewed his personal trainer who travels around with him, who fixed him up with his wife. So you get some really good insights. I just interviewed Alan Roth, who won the highest award you can for Hollywood screenwriting. He won the Nickel Fellowship, huge award. So of course we become friends now, and we talk about old movies because I love old movies. He's so fascinating. Then 2 weeks ago, I interviewed a singer out of Nashville who lives up in northern Canada. In a week before our interview, she said, "By the way, we had set this up. Her name's Abby Grace," and she said, "By the way, I'm in hospice. Do you have a problem with that?" I said, "Not really,
Yeah.
not really." And then a few days later, she said, "I'm now bedridden. Do you have a problem with that?" I said, "No, as long as you want to, it's great." So she was fascinating and wonderful. Didn't look particularly great. And of course, she said, "How fast can this, be aired? Because I don't know how long I'll be here." I mean, powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. And then 2 weeks ago, I interviewed a guru. His name is Guru Yogi Shivan on top of a mountain in India, and he's got a whole clinic where he heals.
I actually interviewed him too.
Wow!
I know, right? I haven't
Wow!
published the episode yet, but yeah, I recorded our episode, I don't know, about a week and a half ago. But I'm about 3 weeks behind on editing right now because 'cause I've had so many interviews, which is amazing, but I'm a one-woman
So
show.
funny.
But
Well, he
yeah,
reached out to me. He reached out to you. So there
yeah,
are.
he's
That's great.
fascinating. He's a
Fascinating.
fascinating individual.
Yep, fascinating. So I mean, I love this stuff. I love the diversity. I love the backgrounds and where the I interviewed recently. She has the number 1 graduate school class at Stanford. The name is Chanchelle Gard, and she's a professor at Stanford, and number 1 class for Stanford Graduate School of Business. Interesting, fascinating, about she's Indian American and her journey. So I mean, I interviewed a woman from Michigan a few years ago, Greta Yuling, professor of anthropology at Michigan, and she was flying every few months to the Ukraine to interview women and children on how it feels to be in a war.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Interesting stuff, Amy.
Yeah. That's one thing that this podcasting world really opens you up to is just all these different life experiences that you never really thought about before until they're sitting right in front of you and telling their story as they lived it. And you're just thinking, wow, I had this complete opposite experience while you're going through, like a war torn situation or whatnot, or like Yogi Shavan living on the mountains and learning his spirituality and whatnot, while I'm going through, I don't know, driving to work every day and doing what I'm doing. And so it's just a really interesting thing to I don't know, really think about and get into. It's just these other people from all over the world with different experiences and different stories. It's cool.
It's very cool. It
Yeah.
really is. No, by the way, and I think what you and I do
Uh-huh.
is going to even rise more and more in importance. I think one day, I hope one day, the armies of people who are on TikTok watching some people dancing for 15 or 20 seconds, they're gonna kind of wake up. They're gonna kind of wake up and realize that the world is changing really. I do a lot of AI stuff, uh,
Mm.
and I came away. My takeaway from AI, when I grew up, when I was growing up in the old days, in the 50s, the 60s, people said, the world's going to change every 10 years.
Yeah.
And it did change every 10 years.
Yeah.
Now the world, according to Calvin, is changing every 15 minutes.
I know. It's
For
like,
the various, like, so we have, I think, a collective responsibility to bring people in to kind of guide and lead people along, especially all these young people, because they're gonna need. I also, and this one of my favorite interviews with Mustafa Amar, and he and I became friends. I've interviewed him 3 times. He's great, and he's an author now, but he was a pharmacist in Egypt, and then he became a diplomat in the Egyptian embassy in Beijing. Taught himself Chinese, then became an investment banker and raised money for Middle Eastern agriculture. He's great. I mean, we can really, it's a nice friendship. And now he writes books to try to teach young people how do you change careers and how important it is to have 3 or 4 different careers. So it's our collective responsibility to bring these kind of people so that we can pull people away from TikTok and let them start learning about the world, because the world is going to pass them by.
oh, it is. It is. Well, and, yeah, you're so distracted by something like TikTok and just dancing monkeys and whatnot. Some terrible things can happen around you because you're not paying attention to what's
Yeah,
going on. And,
yeah.
I pray that doesn't happen, when I'm trying to teach my kids the value of, getting their nose out of those screens and computers and, paying attention to what's going on around them, trying to. It's so hard to fight what what the culture is pushing them
Correct.
towards, though. It's very difficult to fight that as a parent. It really is.
Correct.
But I'm trying.
Well, I got grandkids, so I gave up on my son. He's set in his ways, but if I can kind of influence the grandkids, which is a wonderful experience.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Wow, it's just crazy to think how things are gonna be changing for the future generation. I mean, it's gonna be something that we never even imagined, just with as fast as everything's changing. I don't think we can imagine what they're gonna see when we're gone.
I want to imagine, you
I
know,
know, right?
I don't want to imagine. The funny thing about AI, when I was talking to the screenwriter, Alan Roth, we were talking, we kind of Zoom once a week just to, I just love picking his mind
Yeah.
about, Hollywood and stuff. And I then reminded him, although he knew, that there was a movie that came out in the 60s called The Space Odyssey, 2001, The Space Odyssey. And at the end, and it's the 60s. This is the 60s. And at the end of the movie, these guys are they're astronauts and they're out in deep space. And at the end of the movie, the computer on the spaceship tries to take over. And the computer's name is Hal, Hal. And so the astronaut is fighting the computer who wants to take over the spaceship and do what the computer wants to do. So, unbeknownst to the world today, but the whole concept of AI and fighting AI was born back in the 60s, when Arthur Clarke, who wrote that book that became the movie, started talking about that. So this stuff isn't new. It's been coming
Oh, yeah.
since the 60s. So I believe you and I and other podcasters have a responsibility to begin trying to get to people, and podcasts I think are going to become much more important and more valuable,
Thanks.
because we're sharing, you know, you know, CBS and ABC and NBC, they can't, CNN, they can't do this kind of introspective journalism. They don't have the time or the will. We can.
No, and they've got so many people that are funding them that have their own agendas, and they have to say what they're told. You know, I mean, to a degree, yeah, we've got parameters that we've got to follow based on the platform that we're on. But I don't have somebody narrating my script for me. I don't have somebody handing me the questions and telling me what direction to take anything with anybody that I bring on here. And that's the really cool part about it.
It's cool. It's really cool. We're free spirits.
Yep.
Yep. And it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to be free spirits. And we're free spirits because nobody's, funding us. So we're really free spirits.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
It's funny. I used to joke to friends, on all the stuff I've been doing all these years. I used to joke that I don't pay taxes. And my friends would say, Calvin, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to go to jail. You can't not pay taxes. I said, well, I don't pay taxes because I haven't earned anything.
Right.
Very funny, it's
Yeah.
funny. But we do, what we do because there's a love and there's a passion
Yeah.
for doing this. And you do it so well. Like I said it 5 times already. I do marvel at you.
Well, thank you.
Truly.
I appreciate it. I really do. Because I do. I get that negative voice going in my head, like just because, I still deal with having to tell myself to knock that crap off sometimes. But yeah, I do. I get anytime I start anything new, I'm like, you can't do this. What are you talking about? Nobody's gonna listen to you, and nobody wants to watch you. Nobody cares what you got to say, And so that's gone through my whole head the whole time I'm trying to put this together. But at every step of the road, I'm like, "You just shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. You're the one who doesn't know. People are gonna listen, and the right people are gonna listen, and that's what this is for." So, I had to do that fight with myself the whole time. It was a fight. It was a knock down, drag out fight.
It is a fight. Sometimes I say to myself, why am I doing this? We go watch Netflix for a couple of days,
Yeah,
just online. But hey,
yeah,
Netflix is, I'm about 3, 4 miles away from where Netflix is building a billion with a B, $1 billion studio.
yeah.
And New Jersey probably will become the Hollywood of the East because they're keeping building all these mega studios here in New Jersey, because New Jersey is a very friendly state for filmmaking,
Really?
uh, which I love the whole notion, because I love film. I keep watching all these old movies. Um, so-
What film do you think they should remake?
well, I know they can't remake The Godfather, and they can't remake Casablanca.
Yeah,
I don't know. Today they make a lot of these, uh, you know, um, uh, high, Indiana Jones and all these Star movies and Avatars and all this. Yeah, I'm just kind of a simple
yeah,
movie guy, and I get energized when I want to laugh. I put on The Sting with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. I just laugh and laugh
yeah.
and laugh. When I want to feel sentimental, I watch Yankee Doodle Dandy with James Cagney, an old 1942 movie. I watched From Here to Eternity, made in 1952, with that launched Frank Sinatra's. Basically, it relaunched his career and won an Academy Award for From Here to Eternity, and it's just one of the most emotional, powerful, wonderful movies. You can't remake that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm not a big fan, of remaking stuff, because I don't think they could ever remake Casablanca, which is just it's marvelous and wonderful. Lawrence of Arabia, they can't remake, you know. Um, It's a Wonderful Life,
Mm.
a Christmas movie that comes out. Can't remake that. And, they can't. And you watch it. It's on Christmas Day for like 8 hours. You know, um, you know. So I'm not a big fan of remakes.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any particular story that you think the younger generation needs
Yeah.
fro from your time?
I think the younger generation needs to understand their parents. So more stories that deal with the evolution and the growth. More movies that from the '60s on, because I think the younger generation need to see how their parents and maybe their grandparents came out of the '40s and '50s and '60s and became what they are. And we made a lot of mistakes, and we're leaving not necessarily a great legacy. But I think more stories about their world, not fantasy stories, but real stories,
Yeah.
painful stories, journeys. I think more of that. The revelation. And it sounds biblical. The revelations of this generation and what we've done and our failings and our shortcomings, because we're not necessarily leaving a great environmentally, we're not doing.
Yeah.
So I think more reality, real stuff. I mean, reality TV does great, and I think more reality movies examining the soul and the psyche and the spirit of people, real stuff, and maybe real stories. I wouldn't mind seeing stuff that's happened to me, up on a big screen because it's powerfully real.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, um, it's really real, and a lot of this stuff doesn't have explanations. That other famous, not famous. The other thing that just completely blew me away was 2 years ago. I was upstairs watching football,
Oh.
and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but it's really interesting. I was watching football. It was January 17th, 2024. And my family, my son and daughter-in-law and grandkids live nearby, and they all came over and they're yelling for grandpa to come downstairs. So I jumped out of bed. I ran around the landing. It's a big, steep staircase here. I took one step and I fell.
Oh.
So this 6'5" body fell down 7 steps with such force that when I hit the landing, it then propelled me into a somersault. So now I'm somersaulting down 4 more steps, putting my hand through the wall, and landed on the floor. Uh, got up without a scratch, nothing. So I called all my doctors the next day that I have to get my head x-rayed to see if I'm bleeding. Every doctor said, Calvin, you should have died. Nobody, nobody falls down 11 steps and somersaults at 78, gets up and walks away. You break a neck, you break a back,
Yeah.
and you do something to your head or you die. So that's a great story. It should be told because there's a power, up there. There's a spirit up there. Good stuff,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
Yeah. You definitely was you were being protected. You got a story that you're putting out there, and that story's gonna get out there. And so
Yeah, I don't know why I'm being protected. You sometimes wonder about things. And I haven't even told you 1/10 of all this wonderful spiritual stuff. That's why I wrote about it. It took 5 years to write about it. So I just felt I needed to share this, and I don't take it for granted. Every day is a gift.
yeah, yeah,
It's a gift. Um, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you, and giving a chance to, get a chance to kind of tell some of this stuff because, I almost never, I'm almost never on this side of the Zoom. I'm usually asking questions. I'm not asked questions, and that's why this means so much to me. 'Cause,
yeah.
I just don't do this a lot because I get wrapped up. But I'm so grateful to you, Amy, for this opportunity.
Well, I'm grateful that you came on and you're telling these stories because they need to be heard. And uh, number one, and they're going to help other people along their journey. And that's the important part. That's why I do what I do and why I put these stories out there. And I know we're getting at that time, and I know I could keep talking to you all day long. I really could, but if I do too much longer of an episode, man, they start balking at me, but I'd love to have you on again sometime, and,
I'm here. I sit in this chair 12 hours a day. I'm all yours, and of course, you're gonna come on my show. We can do hum hum. Hey, we can do all kinds of creative things. We can just listening to you and absorbing, and we'll talk about it, when we kind of structure on. But we could do all kinds of creative things. There's no rules here. We make our own rules. And when I'd like to explore things.
absolutely, and I live by that. I make my own rules. I do what I want. That's what I tell everybody. I do what I want.
Hey, and listen, you're wearing a hat,
Yeah,
and I'm wearing a hat,
yeah,
and this hat never comes off my head. It's part of my identity, and I love that hat because it's part of your identity.
yep,
So we've got some commonality
yep,
here, and I know you're going to do some dabbling and some writing. We discussed that,
yep,
and I am here forever to help you in that journey because
I love it.
of the stuff I've learned these last couple of years about that journey.
Yep,
And we are now friends, and I'm here to guide and help. Because the writing journey is one hell of a journey.
yeah, yeah. I'm finding out. I thought I could just put words up on the screen and hit submit, and I'm finding out, oh no, there's a lot more to it than just
Oh, so sure is, but it's a very rewarding
yes,
journey, and actually for a guy. For
yes,
me, I can't give birth because I ain't the right gender for that. But the next closest thing to giving birth is writing a book and getting it published.
yep. There you go. I agree. I agree. I could see that. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. And you've got more stories in you, more books in you that are going to be coming out here soon. And so, Calvin, you want to let everybody know where they can find you and
Sure.
how they can get your books and all that?
Sure. There's a tortoise in my hair. Journey of Spirit is on Amazon, Amazon Kindle. Same thing with 10 things I learned from the billionaire. My podcast, Conversation with Calvin We the Species, YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn. I've got a nice little presence on LinkedIn. I got 15,000 connections, and I'm kind of a hands-on guy. So you reach out to me. I'm on Facebook. I'm Cal Schwartz on Facebook. I'm all over Facebook. I love social media. It's really, and also I have a website. I don't pay much attention to it, but it's calvinschwartz.com. People can find me any of those places, and I'm really hands-on. Somebody reads the book and want to ask me questions, we can talk for an hour. I'll answer questions. While I can. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but uh, I'm hands-on.
I love it. I love it. And there it is, another conversation that doesn't just end, it echoes. And Calvin didn't come here today to perform or posture or package his life into some clean little motivational soundbite. He came here with what most people spend their whole lives avoiding: curiosity and honesty and a mind still wide awake to the world. That's rare. That's damn near endangered today. And what Calvin brought into this space was a reminder that growth doesn't stop at 20, 40, or 60. He showed us that evolution is a lifelong sport. And the second you decide you've arrived, you've already started dying. He reminded us that storytelling is not entertainment, it's medicine. It's how we connect, how we heal, how we remember we're human in a world that keeps trying to turn us into noise and algorithms. And in the way he weaves together journalism and spirituality and advocacy, culture, and pure human curiosity, someone who refuses to sleepwalk through their existence, someone who sees the world breaking into 1,000 places and still chooses to show up, ask the hard questions, and carry the light. And Calvin, thank you for your decades of observation, your willingness to evolve, and your commitment to pushing conversations forward instead of letting them fade into convenience and compliance and complacency. Yeah. And to every listener, I hope today shook something loose, and I hope it reminded you that your story isn't done, your purpose it's not expired, and your voice still matters. Maybe more now so than ever. You know, you're allowed to reinvent, and you're allowed to grow, and you are allowed to wake up from whatever version of yourself you've been stuck in. And this is Passion from Pain, where we honor the chapters that shape us and the courage it takes to keep turning the page. And so until next time, stay curious, stay conscious, and stay unapologetically alive. I love you guys. I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Hope you